toy.
We want it bin. I have spoken.
Welcome to episode 290 of the Smuggler's Galaxy podcast. It's I, Jason. Glen is in New Orleans this weekend for Chewbacca's, which is a sci-fi Mardi Gras themed thing that he goes to every year. But that doesn't mean that you're going to miss out because I got Shawn Moynihan here, all the way from Staten Island.
That's right.
Sean is
All right,
a
how we doing?
Good. Sean is a collector, super saver. He's always on the deals and he's messaging me left and right when, hey, this dropped to $8. Hey, this is $65. What do we do? Which I appreciate.
I do that. That's fair. That's
I
fair.
appreciate that.
You know,
'Cause-
modern collector. There aren't too many modern collectors in our group, so you gotta stick together.
Yeah, yeah. But do you focus strictly on the original trilogy stuff or just any modern stuff?
No, it doesn't have to be original trilogy. I always say I'm an equal opportunity collector. I like everything.
Good.
I like vintage. I mean, I grew up. I'm vintage enough myself to have seen A New Hope in the theater when I was 7
Wow.
in 77. So I am that vintage. Yeah, I like it. I like it all. I mean, I like vintage stuff. I like modern stuff. I like Gentle Giant. I like, everything. I like, I like posters. I like art prints. I love customs, love custom stuff, like you.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I like a little bit of everything. My only two rules of collecting are collect what makes you happy. And that's number one. Collect what makes you happy, and two, you buy things when they're available, not when it's convenient.
Yes. Okay. Yes. Because you'll miss out. There's plenty of times when I've missed out because I'm going to wait on that.
Beyond that, it's all fair game.
Yeah. So what was it like being 7 years old and seeing Star Wars in the theater?
It was transformative.
Yeah.
Like
A game
being
changer.
total. I mean, it's as much as you can remember what your life was like when you were 7, right? But I vividly remember my Aunt Lynn taking me to see it, and it was just mind blowing. You left the theater, and the thing that I came away with was just that everything is possible
Mm.
now. It just opened up, your little 7-year-old doors of perception to, like what was possible. And it was great. It did exactly what Lucas intended, which is to provide a new myth, for our generation, and to teach, and myths teach you how to live,
Hmm.
how to be a valuable member of society,
Right.
how to treat people. So it was huge. And I was that kid, in school who was just obsessed with Star Wars and just like drawing it all over my notebooks. And you went back to school that fall, and everybody had the lunchbox, and
Yeah.
it was great. It was crazy. And that summer, it was just everywhere. It was just inescapable. I mean, the Miko theme was on New York radio like every 5 minutes.
Yeah. It's the disco one.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the t-shirt, transfers were, just everywhere.
Yeah.
Everybody had them. I remember seeing the early bird kit, in a store, and my mom saying, no, you're not getting that. That's
I was going to ask if you
that's
got that. What was your first exposure to Star Wars collecting then for action figures?
that. Well, for collecting, it was the day my aunt took me to see it. in Kmart that afternoon, we bought they had like some line art posters with like it was like line art posters and a couple of markers. So there I am, like, like before we even left for the theater, I was like,
Mm.
coloring it in, thinking, not even knowing like who these characters are,
Yeah.
and but action figures, it was my birthday's in the end of February, and my mom had said, those toys will be out, before they, probably be out in stores before they even mail them to you. And she wasn't wrong. They were out around that time, or shortly thereafter. And I
Yeah.
think I've thought about this. I don't, I wish I could remember exactly what my first figures were from A New Hope, but they had it, I think, like it's like Chewbacca and R2, I think, were like, you know, definitely up there. But I remember the first two figures I got from Empire were Han Hoth and the Hoth Rebel Soldier.
Okay.
Because we walked into a Toys R Us here in Staten Island, and they had, this was like weeks before the film opened, and they had toys on the shelf. And like, just imagine that, like blowing your head apart when you're 10 years old, and like, and there's like the first wave of Empire figures like on the shelf before the movie's even out. It was incredible.
That's awesome. I miss those days, even for like original prequel trilogy stuff and sequel trilogy. They don't do it anymore.
I miss like the Midnight Madness stuff. I miss that. There was
Yeah.
so much fun stuff in the 90s where yeah, everything was so event based.
Yeah, it was a trip doing because I'm too young for the original trilogy stuff, but I do remember getting Midnight Madness for Phantom Menace. And then I took my kids for The Force Awakens, and we were first in line for Rogue One at Toys R Us. And that was about an hour early. This was in Syracuse. And I was kind of surprised that there wasn't a long line already at 11 o'clock. It was just no one was there. I'm like, all right, kids, let's just go sit down.
I
They wanted to do
love
it.
Rogue One. Oh my God, I love Rogue One. Rogue One, I didn't love the sequels. I wasn't a big prequel guy, so I was like, by the time I got to see Rogue One, I had that voice in the back of my head that was like, is it me? Like, am I too old now? Like, do I just not have it in me
Yeah.
anymore? Although I love the Tartakovsky Clone Wars animated shorts were just incredible, and they still hold up. This still great.
Yeah.
And so I went to see Rogue One, and I took my son, and like when it was over, I was literally shouting in my seat because I was so happy. Like, I turned to the guy next to some stranger next to me, and he just looks at me and he goes, "Wasn't that great?" And I was like, "Oh my God, that was so great! Wasn't that great?" And we just you know, my son was so embarrassed, but yeah, I was just like shouting like in my seat, like how great it was, just
Yeah.
blown away,
Rogue One's pretty special. I
and
think,
so few toys, you know,
yeah, yeah.
around that. Is that weird? Like when you think about how like Star Wars being a vehicle for selling toys, like the sequel trilogy and the and Rogue One, like there wasn't a huge, you know, action figure line or a huge push, especially by the time you got to Rise of Skywalker. How many like carded TVC figures were there?
Well, yeah, it was about six-ish for Rise of
Maybe,
Skywalker.
yeah. Like,
And they completely shut down the individual lines for Rise of Skywalker because the Last Jedi, Force Awakens, Solo, and Rogue One all had their individual cards. So they had like a special Rogue One figure.
mhm.
For Rise of Skywalker, they just shut it all down and said it's all vintage collection now.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's true. It did. That's like the only one that didn't have a dedicated card back.
Yeah. So I'm
Yeah,
curious
that's
to see
true.
what they do for Mandalorian and Grogu. Are they gonna have the individual line back, or is it just gonna be all vintage collection? Which I think that's what they're
That's a
gonna
very
do.
good question. Probably they probably stick with TVC.
Yeah.
That's wild. Yeah, that's right. That's right. I didn't realize that was where the individual crawback lines ended. But even then, I mean, like for Rogue One, there weren't that many,
No.
individual figures, you know. And
Yeah, there
now
was a
they're redoing Krennic for
yeah,
for TVC.
and that Krennic is the Rogue One Black Series one because it's the same cape. It's just shrunk down. It's the
Is
hard
it soft
plastic.
goods or plastic?
Plastic.
Yeah.
It's molded plastic, which I just wish they were consistent about that. It's like, why is this one fabric and this one's not?
Yeah.
What's the factor there? What are we not getting that you've decided to move to fabric for this one?
Yeah, I don't know. Well, I mean, even just look at the head sculpts, how inconsistent
Yeah.
those are. How like one can be incredible, and then you get that new farm boy Luke. It's just like what, like that's
Yeah, I just got that one, which I
yeah.
like the card back and everything, but yeah, Luke is a little off. And I
Everything is great, but the face.
have they ever been able to do Mark Hamill? I mean,
I mean, it's not, and there's plenty of like it's not impossible. They had so many good, passable face sculpts at least that were better than you go back to Power of the Force 2, and there's like the Comtech Luke's face is better than that,
yeah.
better than
Yep.
that TVC one. It's like, what are you doing? It's like, what are you guys doing?
I don't know. They can perfect Lando, which sits on the shelf. I mean, that Lando is a fabulous figure. It's just hogging the shelves.
That's a shame because that figure is actually great. And
Hmm.
and I say that as anytime anybody would complain about that being a peg warmer, I would always say that I would always respond on Facebook and say, well, it's not the figure's fault. The figure is great. It's just it was overpacked. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's just an error in your case assortments.
Yeah.
That Orlando sat there for as long as he did, you know.
And there was a clone in that wave. So they should have double packed. I think the clone was just a single in that wave. They should have double packed that one so people
Hmm.
could troop build. It's just simple math.
Well, it's like it's there's so much money that Hasbro leaves on the table, with stuff like that. I mean, think about. I mean, I I'm a fan of the Troop Builder four packs, like
Hmm.
like that the Zombie Trooper, you know,
Yeah.
four pack. Even though you'll get Enoch, twice if you buy two of them. That pack is amazing.
Yeah.
That's terrific. That one and the Rebel Pilots four pack that came out last year. Those are terrific releases. They're really, really solid. And they can hit it out of the park when they want to, but then like give us a Gamorrean Guard four pack. Look no further than the amount of money that a single carded TVC Gamorrean Guard goes for. Even the re-release. That's like a what, like a $45-$50 figure?
Yep. Yep.
And like you can they'll print money, you know. Give us a four pack of that, or give us like, two fat ones and give us and do two like skinny Book of Boba Fett ones, and collectors will buy that all day.
Yeah. And that would go good with what they're pitching with the Jabba playset and the Book of Boba Fett, Jabba's playset, that whole thing.
That was a huge missed opportunity.
Yeah.
Like how could they not put out a four? They could have sold those all day.
Yeah.
You
That's a
know,
good point.
you know. You know what else I miss is comic packs.
Oh, did you? Do you?
Ah,
I was at a toy swap yesterday and they had some loose of those comic packs like dirt cheap, $15 a figure. I didn't know what I was looking for and I'm not really into it, so I just let it for the next collector, but ah,
those are
yeah.
terrific. Those are just so good. I mean, if you're a regular fan of the comics, you're pretty much reading those anyway.
Yep.
So it's not like any of the comics were, exclusive, but I mean, you make there was that is it the Ulick Keldroma, two pack that came at the end at the end of the line. And I
Hmm.
remember I saw that in Target and I picked it up and I had it in my hands. And I was like, I was like, yeah, it's $20, you know. I was like, and I like those comics, but I was like, it's $20, and I put it back, and then like years later, that's how many hundreds of dollars this
Isn't it
thing.
like 600, $700 now? Yeah. I have the same story with that VCO2 Ahsoka, where I picked her up because that went to Amazon towards the
Which
end
one?
of the vintage collection Ahsoka. Right at the end, they put all those figures up on Amazon, the
Mhm.
last
Yeah.
wave. And there was
Yes.
a comic book shop that had Ahsoka, and I held it in my hand. I'm like, nobody likes Ahsoka. I'll get this later. And then
Uh,
in the pandemic, it was like I think it went up to like $1,400 at one point.
is that the one that like it's the card back image is like she's in the jungle or whatever, and she's
Yes.
like holding the saber upside down? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
The one that they re-released that, right?
Yes. Yeah. So I got the re-release, and I'm happy with that.
Yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, we've all got those.
I wanted to ask you about because you're a big expanded universe guy,
Love it.
and you recently showed off some fan fiction that looked like actual books produced by Lucasfilm.
Yeah.
So how
Yeah,
does that
yeah.
happen? How did they get those published? Because those look legit. Like even the Tales from Boone to Eve look like
Well,
another
how I
Tales
got
of.
turned on to that was the okay, so I love the EU. I love the books. I love Shadows of the Empire.
Yeah.
Like I love Shadows of the Empire. I'm one even though the ending of the book is very disappointing, but um like I'm the only guy who I know who like buys Shizor stuff.
Yeah. No,
So
I'm in that same boat.
so if you see any Shizor stuff, send it my way. I'm your guy, man. Shoot it to me. But
You were once enchanted by his pheromones, and ever since then, you just grab all
he's
his
a rock
stuff.
star. He's a
Yeah.
gangster rock star in
Yeah.
the EU, man. Who didn't want to be Shizor?
Right.
But but I got turned on to that fan fiction through a YouTube channel of a guy who's doing an animated, like a computer animated uh adaptation of Shadows of the Empire. And I think it's it's and I'll look up the name so I don't get it wrong.
Yeah.
Um, but he wrote the guy who did it wrote the Shizor short story that's in the Tales from Boone to Eve
Okay.
collection. It's like that for people who don't know what we're talking about. That's the if you remember the Tales books, like Tales from the Mos Eisley Cantina and stuff.
Hmm.
These guys did that. So this Discord that he was pointing to did a collection of short story fan fiction short stories that are all based around like a lot of the pod racer
Yeah.
pilots and stuff,
Yeah.
and it's fun. It's great. It reads just like the old you know Tales books, and like Tales from Jabba's Palace is like just one of my favorite books ever.
Hmm. Yeah.
So anyway, he was talking about that Discord, and it's Star Wars re-expanded, which is like this group of authors, who I assume you don't know who's writing under a pen name, right? But they are all devoted to continuing the EU. And they have files. If you join the Discord, and you become part of the community, like you can get access you know, to printable files of some of this fanfic, and that you can then go to Lulu
Yes.
and actually publish, like your own paperback or hardback, of some of these books. And that's all you had to tell me, and I was on it, right away,
That's
getting
awesome.
into that because that's such a gift, to see that content, like the Sword of the Jedi series that was supposed to come after the Legacy of the Force books. Like a guy wrote like all three books, you know, to follow that. I mean, if you're an EU, enthusiast, it's awesome. So yeah.
I got to get on that because that Tales from Boone to Eve, I think even just for the nostalgia factor, just to relive the days of reading those tales of Jabba's Palace, tales of the Bounty Hunter, tales of Mos Eisley Cantina, you know?
Let me look up the guy's let me look up the guy's name real quick because I want to make sure because I'd love to be able to turn other people onto it and I don't want to get it wrong.
Right. Uh, the Tales from the Bounty Hunter, I assume you've read that one, right?
Which one?
Tales of the Bounty Hunters?
Yeah, the one that every story is great except the Bosk one because Bosk is hardly in it.
Yes. So you like the IG one then?
Oh, I love that one.
When he becomes part of the Death Star and then boom, he blows up. It's the Force at
That
work.
whole that book is terrific, especially the Boba Fett story in that is really good too.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
really good.
That's classic. I just recently saw George talking about the EU, and it's probably an old interview, but he was just like, it doesn't exist. Whenever I need to do something for the films, I just do what I want to do. I ignore all the EU stuff. So, and
It's books.
I just found out he hated Mara Jade.
He did.
I didn't know that. I don't know why I didn't know that, but he just hated it with a passion. Or her.
Yeah. Who knows why? Yeah, he hated Mary Jade. It's like what's the and it's so disingenuous to be like, to throw out the EU or to be angry about the success of the EU. And it's like, meanwhile, the EU is the reason why Star Wars like was revitalized as a
Hmm.
franchise. It's really kind of, like I said, disingenuous to say like, oh, the books don't mean anything. Right, right. Like I got news for you. Without the End of the Empire trilogy and Courtship of Princess Leia, like those books that completely revitalized the franchise.
Yeah.
You wouldn't have had special editions, you know, or the
No, it would.
prequels or anything like that without the success of those books and the books that followed. I mean, was everything in the EU great? No, it kind of for every I Jedi, right? You have a Children of the Force.
Yes,
You know what I
exactly.
mean?
Yeah,
For every high, you have oh, that wasn't that great, like
right.
equal. No offense to Barbara Hamblin. Um, but I love the books. So it's called Star Wars Fan Animations is the name of the YouTube channel.
And he's working on a full Shadows of the Empire movie, or just a
Hmm.
short?
No, he's doing the whole thing. He's
Oh,
doing it. He'll probably do it like in installments, but it looks terrific so far. What he's done so far is really good. There's a trailer for it that he cut together.
we'll check that out.
Yeah,
That'll be
yeah,
pretty awesome to see.
it's really fun. And like I said, he's the guy who wrote the Shizor short story, which I have yet to read, but I'm excited about.
Yeah, yeah. No,
Mm.
and then do you know why? Did you ever play the video game on Nintendo 64, Shadows?
I played it at Daryl Whitlow's house
Yeah.
twice, and I'm a child of the '70s, so I'm not great with like controllers that have more than two things to push.
Yeah, you just need a joystick and a button to shoot.
You know, I'm not, I'm not that dexterous with it, but yeah, I mean, it's what little I did was fun. I'd like them to re-release, remaster and re-release that like they did with Dark Forces for the Xbox One. That I'd like to that I would take a shot at playing.
I hope so. Yeah, put that on Switch. But
If I can't, that
spoiler,
N64 controller is just like,
I
God.
loved it. I
It's,
love that.
it's
I love that
I
game.
just I can't make heads or tails of that. I need like two.
GoldenEye, Ocarina of Time, Shadows of the Empire. I was all over 64. But back to Shadows, Dash Rendar lives in the end of the
Yes.
video game because,
Spoiler alert. Yes.
yeah, spoiler alert, because they thought people would be mad if they played this full game as a character, and then in the end you just die. So no matter how you play the game, you always lose. So they had to engineer a secret ending where, you
Yep.
live. And I guess the book is pretty ambiguous about it too. Like he could have blasted off before that
One of the only
chase.
redheaded characters in the EU.
Yeah, with shoulder pads.
Sorry.
With shoulder pads.
Yes.
Can't
With
forget
shoulder
that.
pads. I think one of these days we're gonna have to do some Dash Rendar cosplay. Like
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
if they ever have like an archive party again, like if they ever go back to that, I think I'm gonna have to do that.
You don't have to shave. You can just let your hair be wild and just not care. What's up?
Yeah. That would be awesome.
That'd be great.
These big shoulder pads.
You want to take a nap, you just cock your head a little bit to the side, put on the shoulder pad, wake up.
I love it. Are you going to Japan?
No, I'm not.
Okay.
I can't afford it, to be honest.
Most people can, yeah.
If I were to do Japan, I'd want to go for a couple weeks. I can't take that time off. I don't have the ability to, hang out for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
You?
Yeah. Yeah, we're gonna go.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm taking my son.
That's gonna be awesome. You going for the like a week or two, like I was saying? You're gonna just
Yeah,
go
we're
for
going
the
for like a
weekend?
week and a half.
Okay.
Yeah, we're gonna like that's what I was doing all afternoon today. I was because we're gonna go do a couple of days in Kyoto. So I was like I've been putting it off and I spent 4 hours putting together that itinerary today.
Uh,
Because I knew what I wanted to do, but it's like, where trying to book the hotel relative to where everything is so that you're not too far away and, all that jazz. So,
be
so,
awesome.
well, let me know if there's anything you need, man. I'll hook you up.
Yeah, I mean, if Micro Galaxy Squadron, the mini vehicles, if they're doing any exclusives, maybe I'll ask you to run over there and see if they have those available. But I think I'd be interested on the rumors are always wrong, but what the con is saying about the next celebration, there's always those floor rumors like, hey, I just heard that the next one's in Paris, which never happens.
Celebration Paris.
That was a rumor that I heard on the con floor one time in Anaheim that the next one would be Paris, and then they just said London. It's like, oh, okay.
I remember hearing that somebody was saying, "Oh, it's gonna be Japan," and I was like, yeah, right. It's not gonna be. BS.
It was true.
BS. Here comes Japan. But I wonder if it'll be, because the last Japanese celebration was '07.
Yep.
So, and that was by all accounts, that was a small affair.
That's what I've heard.
So we'll see. I wonder just how big it's actually going to be, and how many, and to your point about, microgas, like how many vendors are gonna, are they obligated uh, you know, to exhibit, you know?
I don't think they're obligated, but I think they would want to be where it is,
Yeah.
especially if they can make a buck.
What's the latest with them? I haven't seen too much new stuff, although I could be wrong about that. I know Target had a couple of exclusives, right? Like last fall.
Yeah, so we had the guy Max, who was the senior brand manager for the line, on the podcast a couple times. He's since stepped away, and it's just been radio silence. He was out in front. He was on different Micro Galaxy stuff, Action Fleet stuff, Galoob stuff. Because I mean, that's the same kind of audience. If you like the Micro Machine Galoob stuff, you're gonna like the new stuff.
Sure.
But the second he was stepped away from that whole line, it went radio silent. So now it's just like what shows up on the store shelves. We don't really get previews anymore. They don't do the stuff that Hasbro does where they're like, here's the pipeline, here's what's coming, this will be available in a couple months, pre-order tonight, whatever the case may be. That's not what they do. And it's starting to get a little bit frustrating too, because they do chases and rares where they'll make one vehicle that's, of 5,000. They'll make another vehicle that's of 15,000. And tracking that stuff down could be pretty frustrating. There was a thing that just came to light about Biggs and his X-Wing. About he was a chase of 5,000, and they estimate about 800 got destroyed, which just made that even more difficult to track down.
Oh no. How'd they get
Yeah.
destroyed? On
Uh,
purpose?
no, so what Jazzwares does is they send out a box set So if frustrated that you can't find the thing, they sell all five of the vehicles of that wave, including the chase and the rare.
Mm.
Um, the idea is that these vehicles were being sent to Jazzwares, but they were mislabeled. And because they were mislabeled on the box, they decided to just destroy the entire set. And so they've released, Series 3. This would have been Series 4, and they skipped that and they went straight to Series 5, which leads credence to the fact that these were destroyed and we're not going to get a Series 4 box set,
Oh no. Uh,
which I think it's bad to do these chases and rares things because you're rewarding the secondary market. They're the ones that are going to benefit from the $100 things. Jazzwares, I mean, they get $12, $15 per vehicle, and then the scalper gets $300,
yep. Yeah.
which stinks.
So what was the last thing that they released? Like what was the last thing to come out like from that
Let's see.
line?
Right,
I remember
right.
seeing some exclusives at Target, right? Like last
Yeah, so there's some pod
fall.
racers that are exclusive. There's a Ewing that's
The U-Wing,
exclusive.
right? Yeah.
Yep. They also had the Bongo from episode one and Darth Maul's Sith ship. Those were all exclusives at Target. And then they just sit on the store shelves and then they go on sale for 50% and then they disappear.
Well, I don't know. I mean, it's interesting how Chris Hamilton and I were just talking about this the other day about the number of units that each Target gets. Like it'll even if it's a Target exclusive, they might just get like one case.
Yep.
Yeah. Like each store might just get like like the those prototype figures that those 5 POA prototype figures that do like like the Boba Fett, for example, or the Stormtrooper. They like most stores only get like one case and that's it.
Yep.
Yeah.
And once
Then
they're
like
gone, they're gone.
once they're gone, yeah, they're gone in a week, if that, you know.
It's frustrating to be a modern collector because you have to deal with this. You just want to get the figure and hang out and not worry about the stress of they don't have it at this Target. I guess I gotta go to that Target.
Dude, it can be stressful. The what was it 2 summers ago now when they had that Dark Empire. They said, it was like supposed to be like, comics, whatever, like uh TVC exclusive Target exclusive Boba Fett that was like in the Dark Empire colors,
Yes, yeah.
like I mean, like what it's hard for me to imagine a figure that I would want more in the universe,
Hmm.
than that. And like just trying to get that where I'm like standing there and I'm like having to ask somebody to look in the back, for you. And it's like, why is this so? And I remember
Especially
doing,
at this age and for
dude,
ourselves.
you know
It's
what I
not like
mean?
we've
Like
got a 7-year-old kid next to us. Can you see
yeah.
if you have this for this kid? No, it's for me.
Yeah, I'm like, yeah, do you mind looking in the back to see if you have, and you're like having to get the DCPI number,
Yeah.
you know, to show, like it's like, can I just buy this stupid toy,
It's a far
please?
cry from what you were talking about earlier when you were a kid and you were just walking to Toys R Us and it's everywhere. Now it's six figures, first come, first serve.
You know, it's crazy. I mean, look, I get it. I remember um the glut of episode one stuff, and even seeing the Comtech figures like made the bins
Hmm.
eventually in
Hmm.
Toys R Us because they had so many of them. I remember seeing like a full bin of like Comtech Vaders and Comtech Hans and like and everybody and all the collectors like me just went and bought as many of the Comtech Stormtroopers as much as possible, which is still a great figure, by the way.
Yeah.
Uh, for like I think they were like 250 or something like that when they made those bins. But like, so I understand that you don't want to, you know, make too many, You don't want to choke on overstock, right?
Right.
But there's got to be something better than what we get now, like where you know stuff is just it doesn't have a retail presence. Like what killed the Motu line originally was that you know He-Man wasn't in a lot of those like later assortments. They'd have a whole case of Buzz Off or
Right.
you know
Obscure villains.
whoever. Yeah, which is fine if you want that figure, but you know, if you're trying to get kids excited about, you know, it, then the argument becomes, well, kids aren't the ones buying toys.
Yeah.
And,
These
and to which I say, okay, well, are you know, middle-aged guys the only people buying action figures? I doubt that. you know and it's
Yeah.
sort of self-fulfilling prophecy, like for them to say, oh well, kids don't buy a vintage collection figure. Like, yeah, they don't buy them because you don't put out enough product in the store, like for them to walk by and go, ooh, Darth Vader, or ooh, Luke Skywalker, or you know
It seems like the fall of Toys R Us really affected the toy industry, and a lot of this problem has happened since then. I just don't know if there's the store shelves. They're very competitive. And now, Hasbro has so many brands. They don't want to have too much Star Wars on the shelf and then not enough, Marvel or not
right.
enough Power Rangers and G.I. Joe. Like they all have to split everything up evenly.
Mhm.
And
Yeah,
so they're trying not to eat themselves alive.
that's a good
So
point.
there's a lot of factors going on. And I don't think the toy industry is healthy. I'll put it that way.
No, I don't think so. I agree. I mean that I'm just as nostalgic as the next guy for Toys R Us, but you know, let's not forget that like a lot of those price points were way too high,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know,
Toys R Us had a
at Toys
tax
R
on
Us.
it.
They were. I mean, I mean, the trade-off is you'd have like an entire aisle of Star Wars stuff,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
But, you know, a basic, TVC figure was expensive for I couldn't tell you exactly what the price point was in, maybe 2011 or whatever, but it was on the high end.
Yeah, it was $1 or two more than like Walmart. But I mean, that's the cost to to have figures available to you because you couldn't find them at Walmart.
Yeah. I mean, they have plenty of, exclusive boxes,
Yeah.
the BMF, like when that first came out and they had it. Remember they had that like in vintage collection packaging that
Yeah.
looked like straight out of 78,
Yeah.
and like I remember that went down to I think it was $80 when they were blowing those out. I remember that Christmas, those came down to like there was a brief moment where they were blowing them out for $80. I know because I bought one, like some friends of mine, we all threw in like $20 and like bought one for Toys for Tots
Yeah.
that year.
Yeah.
And like that, boxed that ship now would be like what, 500-600 bucks,
Yeah. Yeah. Right
something like
now,
that,
even higher than that
approximately. I mean, at least 500, if
if you
not
get a
more.
good seller. Yeah.
Like, you know, it's just
There's-
amazing. But that's part of it. That's part of the reason why there's so there's a finite amount of mint stuff out there in the secondary market from that time period, because it wasn't cheap. Even
No.
the I laugh like when I see like stuff from the early days of the vintage collection, like a DAC or something like that, like that terrible first wave. It was like, I was like,
Obscure
what?
stuff.
Really?
Yeah.
Like talk about like Dengar, really? Like just terrible character selection in that
Yeah. This
in
should have
that first one.
led. This should have been the first figure, Luke Skywalker.
that it was just like it was just a terrible, and I sound like I'm really, giving it to Hasbro every chance I get. I'm not. I don't mean to be disrespectful because
Yeah.
when they want to do it right, I mean the ARC Troopers 3-pack,
Yep.
vintage style 3-pack. I mean, come on, that's amazing. That's amazing. All three of those figures are incredible. And like to put that out, like I mean, so you know, when they want to knock it out of the park, they can,
Yes.
you know.
Yeah.
But and sometimes they do. But anyway, the point I was going to make was those those early TVC figures are all, like crazy expensive. And like that stuff peg warmed for like a year and a half. That
Yeah.
first a couple of those TVC waves where the character selection was so poor and the price point was so high that like you'd go in a Walmart and like you'd see the same figures on the pegs for at least a year.
Yeah. They weren't interested. People were not interested in that line. It took a while for it to catch on, and when it did, it's like it's the dominant line now.
It was too expensive. I
Yeah.
think I really think the price point was too high. It was like about, $2 or $3 too high, per unit.
Yeah. Yeah. So let me ask you this. If Hasbro decides to say this is too expensive, this line, we don't want to do this anymore. And there's probably two options if Hasbro walks away. It's probably Mattel, another big toy company.
Mhm.
Do you continue collecting or do you just say, Hasbro, this is a good ending point for me? And there's a second option, which I'll get to in a minute.
Okay. No, that's a really good question because I'm at a point now where I'm sure a lot of people have the same problem is like a finite amount of space
Yeah.
and we just keep adding to the pile,
Yep.
every year.
Yep.
And, you know, I have to be really excited about a release now to buy it.
Yep.
And, you know, it's the harder it gets, the harder you make it, the more you make us have to jump through hoops, you know, like to keep supporting the line, the less inclined I am
Mm.
to, you know, to do it. Like, did you back the and I don't want to change the subject, but did you back the Cantina?
Yes, because I'm a big Cantina fan, as evidence of all the Cantina
Oh,
stuff
yeah,
behind
stupid
me.
question. Yeah.
But I mean, it did feel like a half-assed version of the Cantina. I'll be honest. Just a couple walls. It's not a full setup like I was hoping.
hmm
It didn't have a
Yeah,
lot of
that's
substance on the side.
and they held the the tonic assisters for ransom.
Yeah, I know a lot of people are not happy about that.
That was, I mean, as a longtime collector, I was offended by that. I was like, man, that is so uncool. Like to say, oh, the only way you're gonna get the tonic
Yeah,
assistants is if you spend, 500, whatever it was, $400 or $500 on this, on this junky, you know, cantina that doesn't even have a floor.
yep,
And I'm
yep,
like, dude, like why? Who's gonna do that when you could go to Stan Solo and buy like a perfect, I don't know if you collect his stuff. I do. The vintage style Tonica sisters that he made are perfect.
mm,
Perfect. Like why do I need, I bought those and I happily, I have them happily displayed on my shelf and there's, I don't need to I don't need to spend $500 on TVC versions of that. Like, like we have
yeah,
other options,
yeah, yeah. Hasbro should
you
remember that.
know? So,
Absolutely.
so to answer your question, I don't, but to your point about Mattel, at least Mattel with Masters of the Universe, I only know this because my son collects it and he's like, even though he's like sort of taking a break from it right now, like I've kept up with I still get emails about the releases. They do a lot of, direct to consumer stuff now, where like you could still get stuff on in Target and some Walmarts,
Hmm.
but they've continued the main figure line, like more obscure releases, like don't go to a store, like they'll sell them directly, you know.
Yeah.
To then you also have the stress of, oh, am I gonna get it before it sells out?
Yeah.
So,
That's an
you
interesting
know,
strategy.
I don't know. I envision a future where, it's not unrealistic to think that someday even Star Wars evolves into like a subscription service.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
where you pay a certain amount of money per year, and you're guaranteed you could do this. You can have like a tiered system where you know you pay X amount of money per year and we're gonna release whatever, 15 figures, 20 figures, right? What's a normal year? Like 20 releases,
Something
maybe?
about that. Yeah.
Say it's
2030.
say it's 25, right? Let's
Yep.
just for the sake of argument, let's say it's 25. We have 25 TVC releases in a year, and you pay a flat fee and you're guaranteed every one of them.
Yeah.
There's
The
plenty of people who would be,
the only
be happy
thing,
to spend that, or like another like you know or maybe every other you get, maybe half of those releases. I don't know, but it's not unrealistic to think that Star Wars could go that the line could go that route where,
yeah,
where they just where they go, okay, you know what? We're going to abandon the idea of selling, you know, um, the vintage collection to kids because we don't feel that that's our demographic anyway. So let's sell directly to collectors and, offer them a good stress-free way to do that guarantees us a certain return every year. Like that's, in this
my,
climate, that's not it's not impossible.
it's not. But my only hesitation about that is I know that they can get lazy and they can cut corners, and that's what I'm afraid they would do with this because they already have my money. So what difference does it make if they actually paint the entire blaster? They just give them plastic like they had when they were kids. Like that's something that I'm seeing right now with blasters is that it's not painted. They used to paint the little, like there's a wooden section on
Sure.
a gun.
Yeah, the handle
The handle, yeah, they used to
or a
paint that.
silver tip.
Yeah, they don't
Yeah.
do that anymore. It's just here's your plastic.
Yeah. And the plastic's all rubbery.
Yeah, exact. Yeah,
On every other blaster, it is.
yeah.
You know?
Shaving money here and there. The alternative to like a company like Mattel getting it is a small place like Mondo getting the line, and they do boutique figures.
Hmm.
But the drawback there is it's a smaller run, higher quality, more expensive. So, and it
Yeah.
might be like two or three figures a year, but are you willing to pay $200 for a figure at that point?
Mondo makes some nice stuff though.
Yeah.
We have a couple of the Masters of the Universe figures that they do, and their stuff is gorgeous. To
Hmm.
your point, it's expensive, but I mean, some of these releases are just stunning. I mean, some
Yeah.
stuff they come out with it. But I have to say, I mean, we brought on one of the Skeletors, the the weapons don't easily fit in the hands.
Mm.
Like they tell you once you buy it and complain, they tell you like, oh, you just put it in hot water and you should, and it'll loosen up. And I'm like, are you really telling me this? Like on this like $250 figure, like
Yeah.
that I gotta boil the friggin' hand to
Yeah.
put the sword. Are you high? Like really?
It sounds like an engineer took a day off and they're like, yeah, let's just do this instead.
I was just stunned by that. And it put me off like buying any more stuff from them because, my son and I were both like, what the hell is this? This is wrong.
That's not acceptable in my book.
It is. It's completely unacceptable.
That's
I mean,
clever.
what do you think? What was the other caveat that you were going to say other than it
Let's,
could go to Mattel, but what you
let's do the
said
Mattel
isn't
or like a
enough.
boutique thing, like
Oh,
a
okay, the
Mondo.
boutique thing.
So
Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't think Hasbro's going to give up the license. I think they're saying that they're thinking about getting up the license as a negotiation tactic. So when Disney comes back to the table, instead of paying 22% residuals or licensing fees, it's going to drop it down to 18, 16. Because I do feel like you were saying, Hasbro can knock it out of the park, but I do think there's some sort of money restraint that they're limited with what they can do because of the budget. I don't think a lot of people are buying, and I think they're too tied up with giving Lucasfilm money to actually have creative runway.
That's possible. Yeah, the truth is probably somewhere in the middle.
Probably.
You know, I mean, look, everybody wants to win, right?
Yeah.
Hasbro wants to, wants to make good margins on it and make a good return on their investment. And, you know, it's amazing to think that Star Wars might be a loss leader for 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 Hasbro. It could be,
Yeah.
you
It
know,
might
like,
be.
think about how much they have to pay for the license every year. Maybe they're, the reason why the product is like, so inconsistent is because, they only have a certain amount of budget for the line, and you know not every blaster is going to be solid.
Yeah.
you know some of
Yeah.
them are going to be a little gummy every now and then, but I don't know. I mean, I think there's a lot of fun that's missing from the line. I think there's a lot there's like when was the last time they did a mail away?
Yeah, they ended that.
You know?
Yeah.
Oh, when,
And
when
that
was the last
wasn't
time they did a mail away campaign? Here's a fun fact. What do you think was the most successful? And I was shocked to learn this. What do you think is the most successful mail away campaign they ever did?
because you're asking this question, I'm gonna say it's not Boba Fett.
No.
Uh, is it Nine Numb?
No. All right, let me be specific. In the modern line. In the modern line, what do you think was the most successful
Oh, it's the
mail away?
Cantina band.
No.
No, from what, the
No.
97?
No.
Huh.
No, that wasn't a mail. Well, you had that's how you had to buy it. I'm talking about like mailing you proofs of purchase and
Okay.
and a check for $5 and you get the you get the
George
thing.
George Lucas as a
It was
stormtrooper.
the Qui-Gon and the Eope,
Really? I did not see that coming.
right? I learned
Yeah.
that years ago. I was shocked,
Wow. I
shocked to
wonder
learn that.
why. Was it
Yeah.
just the hype of
No,
episode one? People were like, let's get this. Let's get on
no,
this.
because they did it. They actually did it a couple. I don't remember what year that was where they did that campaign, but it was after the episode one toy because that originally came out as a boxed
Yeah.
release,
Yeah.
but it was so limited that I think it probably just got like, maybe it got I don't it didn't get canceled, but maybe the run was short, because of, this massive glut of of carded figures at every
Yeah.
Toys R Us in the world. But yeah, it was like maybe like couple of years, maybe I want to say it was like 2 or 3 years after episode one came out, after the toys came out, and they did it, and it was like the most successful one they ever had, which I thought was so wild.
That's crazy. They need to
Yeah.
bring that back. They need to bring back that whole concept of collecting where you're interacting, you're collecting to get something,
hmm
mailing away.
Do you
So,
save? I still when I throw in the rare cases, because I keep all my card backs, right? But in the rare case where I have to throw like away like a box, I still cut out the
the person purchased the
the proof of
UPC.
purchase on it,
No,
you know,
I don't do that.
just in the blind hope that someday that they're gonna say, oh, mail in this many proofs of purchase, and here's a fun story. When they did that carded prototype Boba Fett.
Yes.
Remember that
Yep.
the with the all white one.
Yeah.
you had to mail in, I forget how many proofs of purchase it was. I think it was like five. And I had a few years before that, I had bought this lot of 30 Comtech stormtroopers on eBay, right? So I still had all the, still had all the card backs, right?
Hmm.
And I opened all of them, right? Because I was into
Yeah.
dioramas at the time. And I saved all the card backs and I thought, I'll bet you if I mailed these proofs of purchase in, like with a check, I was like, whoever is handling this is probably not going to care. It's not going to be. I'm sure the
They're not back scanning them. They're just like, okay,
yeah.
this is
Nobody's
five.
nobody's really paying attention. Whoever's handling this, they've probably got this farmed out to a third party,
Yeah.
doing it. Let me try mailing these in, and I got like four of them. And I
No.
and I mailed them in with the checks and it worked. And I got like I got four of them.
Well, that's good to know in the future if they ever bring that back, not to stress about getting exactly what they're asking for. I can go,
Your mileage may vary, and I don't know if it was a bit of a lull at that point for
I'll still try it.
for TVC, but yeah, and it worked. It worked.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it would ever work again, but it did for that. So
Yeah.
yeah. So I love seeing how expensive that figure is in uh the
Rocket firing one.
the rocket firing Boba Fett that doesn't really
Well,
once
I,
again really wasn't what it was supposed to.
yeah, I heard Chris G talking about the original rocket firing Boba Fett, and it didn't really fire. It just kind of like tumbled out. And so I
Yeah.
guess they're being true to that spirit with the new one.
Yeah. So tell me about the masks. How did you get like the cantina masks, like the heads? Like how did you like get into that and tell me the story, like how you
Yeah,
started
so
doing this.
here's your buddy. We don't serve your kind here. Here's
That's
Wooher.
awesome. Oh my
This,
God.
this this light might be too bright.
That is so great.
But after Rogue Fun, I went into like a creative lull, I guess you can say. Like I would really nothing really excited me. I'm big into 3D printing. I had printed that giant Star Destroyer. I printed that cantina. I had put all my energy in Rogue Fun, and then I was just like, I don't know. I don't know what to do. And so, I found this sculptor who had all these files. Here's Hammerhead.
Oh
And this
my
really
God,
started to
that's
excite me.
awesome.
It started to excite me. So, but yeah, that's just been a fun pastime. And right now I'm printing Bomb, what's his name? Bomb Vinden.
Vinden?
Yeah.
Yeah.
His head might be a little too big, but
You got a Kabe over there.
Kabe, I got the Duros. I got
So great.
Ariel Schultz. Hold on. This one is pretty cool.
Oh, that's amazing.
Rick Baker made this guy. He's the Wolf Man, but
Uh-huh.
they obviously didn't want a wolf, just a regular wolf, because they already had one. So he cut off a bat ears and put those on the head, and then he put on a bat nose. And then he also made eyes, so the eyes glow. And that is such a distinctive thing for the character that I had to put the eyes on it.
That's
So
incredible. That's boss.
yeah, it's been fun.
Oh my God, that's so cool.
I got more
That's a
to
figure I hope they re-release from the Cantina.
the
Well,
what?
because they didn't make it right to
Right,
that
right,
tier.
right.
So I mean, so do they have the tooling for that or not, or was that was that a one-off, like where they 3D printed it and
I think it's that. I think it's a one-off. They 3D printed it, and I think once a Cantina or a HasLab gets funded, they're just like, go ahead, do the tooling now because it's so expensive to do. I don't see them doing
yeah,
that in advance. So it's probably a one-off 3D printed. But we got to have all the, you made the full bar. We want all the aliens in the bar. You've got to do them all now.
Yeah. Yeah. Do another Amazon, 3-pack or 4-pack
Yeah.
of carded figures, do like Ariel Schuss, and dude, you could re-release like Bomb Vimden,
Yep.
right? And like a whole bunch of those guys who they did, because those the articulation on those figures was really terrific in like the late and like what was that, like
97.
2008, 2009, like the Saga
Yes. Okay.
aliens, like the right
Yep.
aliens that they did, those you could re-release those, but it's like collectors are never satisfied,
No, I
you
hope they
know.
do a Boshek because the only Boshek we got is Power of the Force, and he's not articulated. I hope they do a new the smoking guy.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking of, and I couldn't remember his name, but yeah, I know who you mean.
Danik Jericho.
Jericho.
Because the one they made, he's got these tentacles from the EU, which is fine if he has that in the EU, but he doesn't have that in the Cantina, so don't make that figure. And then there's one more that Joss Purr, because he can't sit down and he's seated
Yeah.
in the Cantina. So, and I think they used the Han Solo leg for him. They just repurposed them for Dasher Purr, Joss Purr.
It's possible. It's funny because I just rebought that figure in November because I wanted to make a torque for my holiday special
Oh yes,
diorama.
yeah,
Because really the torque is just Das Pure but white,
yeah, yeah,
with like regular flesh tones. So
yeah.
I definitely want to paint that before November.
There's one last thing I wanted to ask you about, and then I'll let you go because it's been an hour. But the holiday special, you love the holiday special. Do you remember seeing that on CBS when it first premiered?
I sure did.
Yeah,
Yeah. I
and you
sat
loved
in front
it.
of the TV and I watched it by myself that Friday night, man. I watched it. It was like yeah, I was 8 years old. Just sat. I mean, the idea of when you're okay, you have to put it in context that, back in 1978, the idea of Star Wars, anything Star Wars being on TV was seismic. It was mind-blowing that you'd actually get to see, because this was like before home video and
Hmm.
before any of that. So all we had were the Marvel Comics adaptations to relive, Star Wars, or go see it again in the theater. You couldn't experience Star Wars at home at all.
Hmm.
So to be offered the idea of anything Star Wars being on TV was gigantic. So yeah, I watched it, and I remember sitting back 2 hours later, sitting back saying, I vividly remember sitting back saying, "Boy, that stunk."
Okay, good. I'm glad as an 8-year-old that resonated with you that
Even
way.
then, even then, I knew it stunk. But if you've read, of course, now I'm gonna blank on his name. The book about the making of the holiday special is so good. If you've seen the documentary, the book's even better.
Okay.
The
I don't
book
think
is,
I think I've seen the doc. I haven't seen I haven't read the book.
yeah, the A Disturbance in the Force. It's so good.
Yes.
The book
Yes.
is excellent, and there's so many great stories, like behind the scenes stories. But like they were filming the cantina scene, and everybody just it was like dreadfully hot, and everybody, like all the actors in the masks, just kept passing out.
Oh, jeez.
Like, all had like heat exhaustion because they were on set for like 10 hours, you know.
OSHA would have a problem with that today.
What?
OSHA would have a problem with that today. You could do that in the 70s. You can't do that today.
You can get away with a lot in the
Yeah,
70s.
you could.
Yeah. But yeah, you know, I love I love the holiday special because of what it represents. It represents a time when Star Wars was still wild and untamed, and
And
when Lucas was still just trying, the reason they did it was they were just trying to keep Star Wars in the public consciousness, as if they had to. I didn't I read that and I was like, what? I mean, I'm looking at it from a very biased perspective, but they did the holiday special because they jumped at the opportunity to keep Star Wars on the minds of consumers.
Right.
So um so there's this whole argument that, the holiday special was when Star Wars was still, was still new and exciting and developing, and it was still, just wonderfully fun, and you had no idea like where it was going next.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, I could see that. It's the
you know,
not the Wild West, but the
it was though. It very much was like the Wild West for Star Wars because you just all you had were the films and the Marvel comics.
you had a
That's
film at that time. You didn't even have films. Like you didn't have Empire.
You
Yeah.
never know yet. We were 2 years away, you
But
know?
it's interesting because as you talk about it, it's like similar to the expanded universe. It was meant to keep Star Wars alive. Holiday Special was meant to keep Star Wars going forward. And the
Hmm.
expanded universe was the same purpose to keep that moving forward so you can get to a special editions and then the prequels.
Right. Yeah, the EU exists because they were like, is anybody gonna care? Like, is that's really what they were doing,
Yeah,
is
yeah,
testing the water to see if people would, because again, they foolishly underestimated the level of fandom out there and said, "Oh, is anybody going to care?" And then they put the book out, and it's like, number one on the New York Times bestseller list, and they're selling it off the back of trucks,
yeah, yeah.
you know,
Good
and
stuff.
so, but I love the holiday special, you know, for a lot of reasons, and that's one of the biggest ones is that, it for me and there's a definite nostalgia feel to it because it's a piece of Star Wars that hasn't been like heavily exploited to,
You
you
say
know.
that, but they're starting to. They're
But that's
starting to mine it.
okay. See, it's so see, but they put out, you know, a TVC Chewbacca in a Life Day robe.
Yes.
Dude, I'll buy that figure 5 times. That's amazing. I
They
love,
also they also have the robe itself. I have the robe, the Life Day robe that they sell,
yeah,
the orb
I love
that
that stuff,
there was an orb glass. Although going back to the TBC figure real quick, that was supposed to be a blue orb, right?
Yeah, and it is,
It's
isn't it?
clear. It's a clear
That's
orb,
right. It is clear. You're right.
which I didn't
It's
understand.
clear. I'm thinking about that now because I just opened it back last fall, and I switched that. I ended up taking the robe off that body and putting it on a VOTC Chewbacca
Mm,
figure instead because
it's
because the
better.
head the head from that fit that the figure that it came on is just awful because that figure beneath the red Life Day robe is the pack-in Chewbacca that came with the Galaxy's Edge Millennium Falcon
Yes. Yeah. Without the bandolier, right?
without the bandolier, and
So it's
it's
got
and it's
holes.
it's just got a weird head, and
Mhm.
and like it's just it's a strange figure. I mean, like the regular version of it is okay. I traded it to Renzi because I knew he wanted it. It was a good trade. But yeah, so they can, you know, they come out with Life Day stuff and it's like it's seasonal, you
Yes,
know.
it is. It's towards
It's
the end of
not
the
something
year.
they beat us over the head with, every day and
No.
like, you know, constantly try to, sell you stuff from it. It's like once a year they'll come out with like an ornament and, like a couple of pieces and that's
Starbucks cup.
yeah, and that's fine and that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a tumbler every year and
Yep.
you know, that's that's cool, I like that because it's not, like I said, it's not exploitative, the way that Star Wars merchandising can feel.
Right.
Like when there's a Star Wars grill, stop,
It's time to stop.
stop, man, stop.
Oven
That
mitts,
that's like
lightsaber. Was it tongs for
tongs.
lightsabers?
Yeah, stop.
Can't think right now because it's late on Sunday night. Chopsticks.
Chopsticks.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Come on, stop. It's why I think I felt like the that reminds you of like when they did like the Star Wars Mr. Potato Head.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Darth
Come on,
Tater.
dude. You are really running on fumes like for ideas. If that's the everybody everybody who thinks, oh, Disney Star Wars is the worst thing in the world. Anybody who thinks that does not remember like the last couple of years there before he sold Star Wars to Disney, and it was like they had stuff like they were getting ready to put out detours.
Yeah.
You ever see that piece of crap?
I'm curious to see it.
Oh
I don't.
God,
I'm.
that is bad.
It's very stylized. Very
Nice.
stylized.
Yeah, stylized meaning bad. It's bad.
So you don't like Robot Chicken, then it's not your humor.
No, that's different. Robot Chicken's fine because that's Star Wars within an established aesthetic.
Yeah. Okay.
Like, and at least those were funny.
Yeah.
You know, but no, it's like just my point being, you could put out holiday special related stuff and Life Day stuff, and
Yeah.
it's always limited and it's super niche and it's for the 1% of Star Wars fans who care,
Right.
who care about that. And and that to me, that's great,
That's
and I
enough.
love that we've established this thing now where, how we do the holiday special watch along,
Yeah.
where like, we have a new poster every year and then, and um, thank you, Kurt Hanks, for, for doing that every
There's
year.
talent. Yeah, those look
Ah,
great. They're phenomenal posters. And it's all for Toys for Tots, which you can't
yeah, and it all goes to charity. So, I love the idea that we could get, you know, Star Wars when at a time when Star Wars is so divisive, and
hmm
everybody loves to argue, not our group, but like when fans in general love to, make a big fuss about stuff and argue about everything. I love that, you know, a certain contingent of Star Wars fans can still, come together.
experience the joy.
Yeah, and just
Yeah.
embrace the joy of it and just take this one thing that, be united by the things we love,
Right.
and
Right.
take a questionable piece of, of Star Wars content and turn it into something great. So,
Right.
and we'll do it again, and we'll do it again this year. I think this year is we're going to have even more cool stuff. Not to plug it, but I can
No, plug it. Plug it. I mean, get it on your radar for November, people.
yeah, we're gonna do it again, this November, and we're gonna have even more cool stuff, you know, this year than we've done before. We're gonna slightly expand, the number of, things you can,
Hmm.
things, cool swag that you can get,
Yeah.
that you donate, a certain amount of money that you can, you know, cool, fun stuff that you'll be able to pick
I,
up if you like that sort of thing.
I can't
So
wait. Yep.
I'm stoked.
I'm all in. Well, thank you, Sean. This was fun. I
Thanks,
don't want to take
brother.
up too much of your time. I said an hour, and now it's almost an hour and what, 20 minutes or so.
You know me, man. I'm Irish. I could talk about this stuff all night.
And I would love that. Would love nothing more to do that, but I do need to be respectful of your time. So thank you very much.
Thanks, pal. Great seeing you. Thanks for having me.
hmm So I just want to make a quick note. I apologize. I said at the beginning that this was episode 290. I didn't check, and this is why it's important to check before you hit record, because you could be wrong. This was episode 230 of the Smugglers Galaxy podcast. So, yeah, I'm glad I got that out of the way. And, you're not, if you're confused in your car, I apologize. You didn't, jump ahead in time a couple months and, locked into 290. No, it's 230. It was my mistake. I was just not paying attention. So, my bad, but. So that was my conversation with Shawn. Thank him again for coming on the podcast and hanging out with me for a little bit here, catching up and seeing what's new in his life and what he thinks about collecting. He's a modern collector like me, so he provides that perspective that we don't normally have on the show other than my voice. So that was great. So again, thank you, Shawn. We hope to have him on again later this year when he does his holiday special rewatch for Toys for Tots. We'll have him come back on. He can show us his diorama for the holiday special and talk about the different tiers of sponsorship for that. All, like I said, all the money goes for Toys for Tots, so it's a great fundraiser and a great activity to participate in. But with that, thank you for listening to the Smugglers Galaxy podcast. If you could, please leave a like and a 5-star review of the show anywhere you listen to podcasts. It really helps us out, and it points people to our show. Our email address is smugglersgalaxy@gmail.com. Thank you to Alfonso Riviera for the Smugglers Galaxy logo, and thank you to Levi Waterhouse for the music. People, collect for the love of it. Hashtag vote with your wallet. Glenn will be on next week. Pass on what you've learned. Be a positive force in the collecting community. This is the way.